I would like to close this lecture with a quote from the brilliant and influential 19th century utilitarian philosopher John Stuart Mill on women and equality. This is what he said. I am convinced that social arrangements which subordinate one sex to another by law are bad in themselves and form one of the principal obstacles which oppose human progress. I am convinced they should give place to a perfect equality. Thank you for your attention and looking forward to our discussion.
The more I learn about Islam, the more I actually physically cringe.
Oh, I hate it.
I know you had given me that movie.
Oh, yeah, you saw that movie, yeah,
Yeah.
Watched Up.
Watched it.
Yeah,
and
that
as
was
I'm
a good
watching
movie.
that, everything, I mean, so many times I'd be like, I am so disgusted by that world that, I know we talked about the moment when the little girl was walking by in some construction which was, let me play with your apples.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He is allowed to do any, or speak anything,
Yeah.
or do anything to this girl.
yeah,
And she, if she just, as one lady put it, laughs,
yeah,
she's chastised. So that level of inequality just, and then you
Yeah.
go on talking about it, and it's like, really, I just,
Well, if he had gotten
I
caught,
physically feel disgusted.
no,
by it.
but in Saudi Arabia, if he had gotten caught molesting her or trying to molest her, he would have been punished. They
Yeah.
would have cut off his hand, probably.
yeah.
But
God knows what
the
they do.
kind of culture that represses sexuality also creates these pedophiles and perversions
Yeah.
that happen.
But he would have got caught if there were 4 of her to testify that he did it. So if he got her alone,
Yeah.
She couldn't go to the authorities. Yeah, you're right.
his word
She-
would
yeah.
be worth,
It's really dangerous
Another
to go
man
to
would
the
have to
authorities.
turn him in.
yeah.
Yeah, another man. You're right.
Yeah, so, just all of the education, the having to stay home, how can that be an enlightened society?
No, it can't, that's why they're so
when
bad.
they're studying the Quran in that movie, and they said, "Oh, here's a Kleenex because you're menstruating. You can't touch
Remember,
with
yeah,
your
Yeah,
bare
yeah.
hands
yeah,
the Quran."
yeah,
And men who touch women can't touch the Quran.
yeah, right, till
Right.
cleanse themselves, yeah. Either cleanse their hands, or if they've had intercourse, they have to, take a bath, I guess, or a shower.
And she has to be ready to
Anytime.
make him unclean on a camel or
Yeah.
a stove.
Isn't that
So-
funny?
Could be dangerous.
Great.
I mean,
Yeah,
talk
a
about,
camel or on a
your
hot stove?
hot sex, I mean,
I think that they mean, like, that's how good a wife should be, that's how ready a
willing
woman
to
should be.
suffer.
Mhm.
I
to make him
think
not
that they
suffer.
probably didn't really mean, I hope not.
So there are positive sides to Islam, not in there.
Oh, boy.
Good thing recently you said that.
But
Oh,
just
yeah, I know,
seriously,
recently.
I mean, I physically feel disgusted by it.
Yeah.
Me too.
The more I know, and, I mean, religion's just another idea people had, and they had a reason for doing all this.
At one
And
time,
it was maybe power, and
yeah,
it was maybe whatever,
yeah,
which again brings me back to the real root problem is that humans, they do this stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, they come up, religion's not something that was handed down divinely, in my
No,
opinion.
we're
People
very
wrote it.
imaginative, I think
And-
that
yeah.
we have taken fantasies. Actually, I know you don't like that Dennett book that much, Norm, but Daniel Dennett in, what's it called?
Breaking the Spell.
Breaking the Spell. That, I think it's is it chapter 2? I can't remember, but it's fairly early in the book. The best part, and it's really worth the money to buy it, is that he's put together a lot of the contemporary ideas of why religion formed. And there's so many, and he's really done a good job of compiling them. And I think it's good to keep in mind how many reasons there probably were.
But back to the veil,
Oh,
there's a lot of defenders, apologists, because I read a lot of Robert Spencer,
I know you do.
and there's these Islamic women who defend the veil
Yes.
and say this is liberation.
Yeah.
They say take off your Western veil. That's the rebuttal. They say no, it's the Western women that are oppressed by the unwanted attention that they get from men by walking down the street and getting whistled at or getting passes made at them. And that we, the Islamic women, we have been freed from that, so we can focus on our studies and on our value as people, that they're essentially neutered. So she points the finger back at people like you and I and Greg, who are saying, don't you tell us you got it worse than we do.
Yeah.
And she wears a veil. But she's an apologist, I think, for Islam, because she's so deluded in thinking that she's liberated. But that's how they'll spin it today. They'll say, oh no, our girls are safer because they're
Yes.
covered. The men who rape are they're raping the women that have, exposing their
Yeah.
bodies. I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't think that that's true at all, because there's a lot of rape in those countries too.
Oh, yeah.
So it doesn't, and those women are all
That's-
covered up, so,
But I do see that there is an argument that girls here are oppressed by Glamour magazine and us and Teen.
yeah, it really
And
is.
the thought that anything that varies from the body of a 10-year-old boy,
Yeah.
is detrimental to your esteem and who you are, and the more, if you weigh a little more, or if you,
Yeah,
because the models are like they're the,
yeah.
and so that is,
That's changing
it's kind of
though.
like a psychological attack on girls, and I know there's a movement to stop that.
Yeah. Like the fashion magazines, which I mean, I admit I read and enjoy. A lot of them have, sections now where they talk about clothes for heavier women, and they also have, articles by heavier women.
And ways to cover up your imperfections.
Yeah.
But you see, you're
Well,
falling into that trap.
Well,
The
not
apologists
really.
want you to say, oh, you see, we're just as bad as the Islam.
Well, I don't think we are, but I get concerned sometimes. And I mean, believe me, I'm no apologist for Islamic customs, but when I see some of those music awards and stuff, and the women are like half naked and things, like it's.
But don't you see?
Don't you respect yourself enough to why do you have to bear everything else for the men to really get hot?
It's their
I mean, what's the
value.
point?
They're taught that's what their value is, and
But it's a choice too. I mean,
Well, it's a
there's
choice,
there's
sure.
no imam saying you must do this or
No, there's no imam, but in a way, it's like an expectation from the public and what have you. So there is pressure here
The
too.
symbols and signs come through the culture to alert the girls at a very young age that
Yeah.
they should participate this way in the culture. This is the way you should look. This is
Yeah.
what you
Are
should
you saying
wear.
that to defend Islam?
No.
Why are you saying that we are just as bad as they are?
I'm not saying
he
we're
didn't say
bad.
just as
All right,
bad. no.
So
I'm not saying we're just as bad as they are. What's wrong is with the Islam is that it restricts the women's movement. It restricts their ability
yeah,
to function in the society. Oh no, we can do this. There's sites all over the web where the veiled women are speaking on how liberated they are.
yeah.
Um,
To
But-
Well, with that photography show that we saw, she
Yeah.
had some feminists that were for the veil.
Well, here's
The
a
same
curious
argument.
statistic that probably it would be really interesting to know. What percentage of American women have anorexia, and what percentage of Muslim women have it? Because that is very much an indicator of what we're saying is the psychological oppression that occurs.
But you're not-
if you're-
But you're not measuring all psychological disorders, you're just saying anorexia. I would guess, yeah, American women, girls have more
Yeah.
cases of anorexia, but there might be much more depression and suicide
There
among
gotta be.
Saudi Arabian girls.
Right. Could be, but
You know,
those are the numbers we don't have. Very much possible.
Well,
yeah.
to us, it's a horrible life. I mean,
It's a prison.
But-
I mean, really, it's a prison in dark cloth instead of bars.
yeah.
So,
You know, glamour magazines are not the Quran. They're not
I agree.
at the same level of authority.
No.
When you say God commands as Allah says you must,
All right, you're right, Norm. Really.
versus Glamour magazine says you should look like this.
No.
and if you don't,
You're right.
then you're
Yeah,
less of a
because there
human.
are women that violate that in this country. the
Well, sure,
Glamour
and they're quite
magazine.
successful. I mean, look
Right.
at Hillary Clinton.
No, no, come on, Hillary looks good.
She's a good looking, heavier woman. I'll tell you, I've noticed that when I was a kid, you know, older women were not attractive. Now these 50, 60-year-old women are hot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You've changed, right? It's your point of view, I guess.
Well, older women look good, I mean, you know, they get facelifts, I don't know, is that a form of, again, oppression?
We'll pause while he's in the bathroom. But, you know, I think we have to be careful that, you know, we don't fall down this pit of, oh, well, you know, we have our problems, so it's culturally improper for us to,
Oh, I don't think it's the
it's
same at
improper
all.
for us to blame, point our fingers at other cultures.
I don't think it's the same
This
at
is
all.
what, you know, John Curry used to
I don't
say.
think it's the same at all.
Yeah. Now,
No, this
you were-
cultural relativism has gotta go, like I said in my talk.
You were critical of Ayaan Hirsi Ali,
Well,
and she has a good point. Maybe you didn't understand the point. She's
no,
trying
I
to make.
understood it very well.
It's saying that these the American feminists are distracted by some guy's T-shirt. Meanwhile, the girls in Somalia, you know, are getting circumcised and getting beaten and can't go to school.
No, I understood what she meant, but you didn't read my response.
I read your email to me.
Okay, well, all right. So atheists are hung over there, so we shouldn't, you know, try to fight for our rights here?
We should fight for their rights.
But how about for
How
ours?
about ours?
Well, you have rights. You see,
Oh, I see, so we shouldn't do it at all.
She
We're
wants it to
arguing
go-
over Hirsi Ali's
no, it's a
statement. We better tell
global.
Greg
It
about
isn't that she's saying you shouldn't fight. She is saying you should fight. What should you fight? The worldwide oppression of women.
Well, how about the oppression here?
There's some guys wearing a shirt with.
Yeah, but she's
Can't be
saying the
proud
same
women.
thing that Richard Dawkins is saying, and they're wrong.
But don't you see that?
Gays are hung there, so they shouldn't fight for their rights here, too? Yes, we want to fight all over the world. CFI, you know, it carries on a very, you know, active program to try to defend people's, you know, right to not
Worldwide.
to be
And
secular.
yeah,
Worldwide.
that's what she's after. She's after the American consciousness pointing its views outward.
But they're
and saying,
also denigrating, you know, the women in the West that are still fighting for their rights. She picked a very trivial issue when they, you know, we're still not paid as
Well,
much.
but
as-
she didn't pick it. Apparently, these feminists. I didn't read the story, but no, they were covering the comet landing. Greg, you were in the bathroom, but the guy who was one of the chief scientists on this lander for the comet was wearing a shirt that day with some scantily
A vest.
clad of women on it, and
A
so
vest?
It's a vest that has all kinds of, like, they look, from a distance, they look like medals or fraternity pins.
But they're
Up
sexy.
close, they're pictures of they're pinup pictures.
pinup pictures.
Yeah.
And so rather than commenting on, you know, his success at landing this comet, the spacecraft, he said, well, he shouldn't be wearing this. That was.
Well,
the
it wasn't
feminist-
kind of poor
Oh my
taste.
God.
It's very
Okay,
poor
so it's
taste.
poor taste, but you see,
Well, sure, but that's why we land things on comets, to impress chicks.
yeah, to penetrate.
Which is it's a good thing,
to
we land
penetrate
things
the
on
comet.
comets.
Yeah. Yeah,
But no, it's really true that they missed the whole point. The guy did something that's never been done in the history of life in the universe as far as we know.
yeah.
It was the first time life ever did that.
But
And they had to land in the
Hirsi
shadow.
Ali picked a very trivial, but she picked a very trivial position, point. She pointed to that when there's really serious
Okay.
issues in it,
Well-
in the West as well.
First of all,
Then-
women do not have equal pay for the same work still today.
How much more do they make?
Well,
The men make more than women do
But
For
for the
every dollar, I
same.
think women
kind
make something
of work.
between 77
I
and.
mean, there's
You're-
no disputing that the statistics are all over the
Yeah.
yeah,
place.
but you're going to adjust for the fact that they take a few years off to have children.
Oh, no,
Right? You're going to adjust for that,
Norm,
right?
excuse me, these are for professional women. These
Yeah.
are women who do not have children. These are women who stay on the job continuously from the time they get there
Yeah.
until they retire. It is a known fact. I can look it up for you.
It's
and
known
quote
to
it
be
to you.
exaggerated. And
It's what?
I will grant you that there's a gap, but that gap has been exaggerated.
Well,
over
there
the
shouldn't
years.
be any gap.
And
There
I was
shouldn't be
reading
a
about
gap.
this in the 70s. I can look it up. It's been exaggerated from what it really is to, you know, what they were saying in the 70s that it was, or the 80s.
Well, I think
But-
they say typically 75 cents on the dollar. What is the real number?
Oh,
Is it closer to, is
Jim, you just said 70?
that right? Is that,
What's that?
What did you say, 70%, 70 cents per?
77 to 87 cents usually.
So I don't have a current number for you, but I could get that if you want to. I just
but it's been exaggerated.
know that.
There shouldn't be
it's a-
any discrepancy. There shouldn't be any.
Well, but
If they are both qualified and they're fulfilling the same position in the company, and they might work in different parts of the country,
Yeah,
doesn't matter. They might work in different parts of the building.
it's
But
not.
if they are both doing the same work and with the same competency, it is invariably, the statistics show that men are making more for the same work than women are. It's still going on today.
Send me your best study, and I will read it over.
I did hear another study that shows that if women own their own businesses, they do a lot better than
Yeah,
men
but that's
owning their
owning.
own businesses.
Compared to
Yeah.
a man, yeah, but
Yes.
if they're, but the total.
But that's not the same work.
Well,
I mean,
it's
I
not
guess
the-
it
it's
is
not
the
the
same
same
work
thing.
if you're just talking about small business owners.
We got distracted.
Yeah.
What I was running about the sati is from a evolutionary point of view, or maybe I should say a cultural evolutionary point of view. What purpose really would it serve to effectively execute widows? Why do you think
Inheritance goes somewhere else.
Inheritance, like
It was-
I
it
mentioned,
was
in some
inheritance.
areas, yeah,
there's a real
bingo.
purpose?
Mhm.
That you get rid of this person who would otherwise get the money.
Yeah, oh, yeah, and also too, women didn't work then. So, you know, they would be probably thrown back on their family, and maybe their family didn't wanna spend money on them.
So they wouldn't have to be supported.
Yeah, if they didn't inherit, yeah.
Yeah, it's true in India and like China that
Mhm.
women, when they're born, what's the saying? A thief has entered the house.
There you are.
Is
Mhm.
that right?
They both have the same darn
Mhm.
saying, and that's their feeling, and that's why a lot of babies are killed.
Yeah,
The female babies are killed.
Don't they understand that they need women to reproduce?
well,
You only
actually,
look at
some
the
districts
context
now,
here.
some provinces, a couple of provinces, they have a shortage, I think, in
Yeah.
China, of wives. The guys have to go outside of the,
Yeah. And
it's
now
turning into a big social
Mhm.
problem.
they're gonna have a lot of angry young men
Mm-hmm,
Oh,
who are
yeah.
not married.
yeah,
But I think that the problem is that it's these barriers that we put up between us and them. You know, it's just everywhere in our lives. It's not just the skin between me and you, or our opinions, or Republicans and Democrats, or Tigers versus some other team, or Michigan versus the state, or the U.S. versus everybody else, or Christians. And so everyone's thinking in terms of their life and their individual universe. How is it affected by this thing? Does anybody say, well, I'm going to take the hit because of the greater society will do better and have
no,
more women?
nobody does that.
It's
Mhm.
rare to find. Some people do. It's
Yeah,
rare to
but
find.
few, but not many.
Oh, yeah.
We just live in our own little individual universes, which
Mhm.
are different for everybody. And if you're thinking in selfish terms, nobody, I mean, in the long run, we all
Yeah.
lose, right?
The society does not
The
prosper.
individual, well, you know.
But these are the
Okay.
same cultures that would claim they value family, that the family is so important. You know, that you must remain loyal and,
It's interesting, isn't
honor
it?
your
The
family.
contradictions within a
it's
society.
disgusting. I mean, it's so hypocritical that they would kill girls.
And when you first were talking about it, because a large part of the Hindu discussion was sati.
Sati,
Sati.
Mhm.
Sati, yeah, S-A-T-I.
It really sounded like it was mostly voluntary,
Yeah, it was.
and
It was.
that on occasion they were, you said,
Mhm.
coerced or drugged.
Mhm.
But this happy ideal of I'm a virtuous person
Mhm.
and I'm all this, and the happiness as you walk in to make the grade set, and then the fire starts licking your skin.
And then you say, holy shit.
And then you need a stick.
Mhm,
'Cause
yeah, yeah.
believe me, it's just not romantic anymore.
I
Not
couldn't
that I
imagine,
know.
I can't imagine sitting there, and some of those widows did that went in voluntarily, they sat there and like
And we
they.
know that from the British account?
Yeah, the foreigners that visited, they were allowed to, attend those satis. So we have these different accounts, we have some of the women going there and very nobly sitting there and getting engulfed with the flame, others where the women are pushed back by the priest. Yeah, so these are not Indian accounts, but accounts by foreigners.
I can't imagine hardly any.
There's a
time
lot
you
of
didn't have
them,
to
letters
push her
that they've
back
written
in.
to friends and,
She believed that she was going to rejoin her husband,
yeah,
Good
yeah.
God, that
yeah.
bum?
Well,
and then, but
It's some kind of transcendence, or if not, join her husband, depending on how much she believes certain parts of the Hindu thing, she would achieve some kind of transcendence. You break that wheel of, desire and,
Samsara. or
and your
Yeah,
memory will be
yeah.
venerated.
yeah, and it's part of it is your memory will be venerated. Remember, life was, like they said, a living sati for a widow, and it still is for a lot of women.
and what exactly is a widow city? You didn't really explain what that is.
That's where widows go and they just try to live.
They try to live how?
On no money.
Just like I told you, well, now the government gives them a tiny pension, most of them.
But is it a ghetto? Is that what you're describing?
It's almost, it's cities where widows have traditionally gone to live. How it began, I don't know.
But they would have to have some self-sustaining businesses or something.
No, almost not. Well, I'm sure that there's some women who have managed to, create businesses, but most of them are, they're not from the upper middle classes and what have you. They're women
They
from
would have to
poor.
grow their own produce.
Yeah, they're women probably from poor and lower middle class. They don't, their husbands didn't leave them anything. Their kids, can't probably do for themselves. Nobody wants them, so off they go.
And,
It's quite horrible
if
when
we
you
had
think
Place
about
to
it.
go to meet chicks, huh?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
situation that really,
Well, see, so the young ones are sexually exploited.
the situation that really gets to me is it's the custom of killing the daughter who
Yeah.
leaves the family.
the honor kill.
Oh, the honor and the Muslims.
Murders, yes.
Oh my God, I know.
Yeah, the honor killing.
Honor killing,
You
yeah.
didn't really cover that, Mary, in your lecture. Was that because it's not officially
It's
part of Islam?
not really, part of the religion that much. It's cultural. I tried to zero in on more religion, religion and culture at least. Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't do that either.
If I can ask one, you had a comment, you said that religious societies oppress more than secular societies.
In general, I think so, yes.
So, I don't know how to validate that. I'm sure you've covered a lot of research and found it. And I might, of course,
Well, it's a
it's
personal
on me whether
opinion
to
too.
just accept it or to
You
look
can,
into it.
when you start doing research, you get all points of view. So,
Yeah.
this happens to be mine, You'll find people will say, religion doesn't, it's really very helpful.
So what's an example of a secular society?
Probably China, and they do, of course, oppress women there, but not that much. Out in the country they do, out in the country, there's a lot of suicide of women out in the
oppress
country.
women, I just thought you were saying general oppression. I guess
Oh.
we say China, they're fairly oppressed.
Yeah.
They are, so they're secular and they're oppressed.
Yeah, but,
So
out
they-
in the country they are, which is kind of cultural. In the cities, they're not that oppressed anymore.
Okay.
Women have an enormous amount of freedom in
They
many
are
ways.
getting more free, more
A lot.
capitalistic and,
Yeah, yeah,
becoming
they're
a big
allowed
world
to own
market.
businesses and start businesses.
yeah. So anyhow, so that's kind of an impression through all your research, but that's something. And I know in one instance, and I know it's just probably meaningless, but you were saying someone had done some research and she was not incorrect. Versus just saying she was correct. Is there a
I know,
difference
I'm
between-
ambivalent about, Gayatri Spivak. She's a well-known scholar, very, very smart woman, but, she has a very postmodern point of view, and it's very anti-Western, anti-colonial. I've heard her speak. She's very hard to understand because, you know, she speaks in that postmodern.
But the term not incorrect is the same as correct. Or was there a difference?
With what?
When you said,
When you feel
Well,
like
I
you
think
carefully
sometimes she's
choose your
correct.
words.
She's correct in some things, like with the mistranslation of the word. I think she's probably correct in that.
Okay.
She's quite an expert. What she's saying about, you know, sati is weird because, you know, she's saying that the British man oppressed the Indian woman. Yes, he did in a way because he was speaking for her, but they did ultimately try to stop that custom, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, I find Sir Charles Napier's, like, statement to them, you know, that we hang men that burn women, I thought was funny. Jimmy, that's kind of got fibers and stuff. I don't think I would eat it.
you want some chocolate, Jim? I can get you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, have some chocolate.
We'll have some later.
Don't stress yourself.
Anyway, did she try to blame the British for prolonging this?
No, I think she was trying to, she had a different purpose. She was trying to say that both the British men and the Indian men were oppressing the Indian woman. She wasn't allowed to speak for herself.
Yeah. Because they're, you know, these colonials, revisionists, want to say that all of the problems today in modern
Right.
India,
Come
South
from the
America,
colonial
are
time.
because Africa are because of the colonials,
Mm.
and that there were no other problems prior to that. And
Well,
that's just
she's
absurd.
quite typical of that group of intellectuals.
Yeah.
No, they're missing the whole
But,
story.
you know, I mean, they have some good points, okay? That's
yeah.
why, maybe I was confusing there, but, you know, it's like I'm trying to be fair. They have some good points. I don't think that they're right in the larger picture. And that's how I feel about Professor Spivak.
So how do you feel about this statement that I think you had mentioned that religion oppresses women, but in my experience, people oppress people.
So that's true
And
too,
it's people who use religion as an excuse to oppress people.
of course.
Or believe in a religious system.
But
to
isn't it
use it to
easier
oppress.
when you say that these rules have been set down by Allah or by God?
Yeah.
Right, but it's
Say-
still people doing it.
Yeah,
And-
but
and-
you know,
yeah.
if you say, you know, I'm Joe Blow and I'm the president or whatever, well, you know,
It doesn't
maybe you'll be overturned in a few
have
years.
the
yeah.
power.
It's
So-
people,
so
it's
Greg-
people who wrote the Quran, it's people who wrote the Bible, that's true too, but they're depending on, we have this word divinely inspired, and they hide behind the religion to put across the suppression, and they try to control,
Yeah.
that's how,
Which either-
men try to control women.
Yeah. So it's either by evil or by what they think is good because they've espoused, I think foolishly, a belief system. So some of the time it's just the will to power, and some of the time it's true belief, which is foolish. So it all still comes down to mistaken humans or people
Well,
doing
who-
bad stuff.
But
And-
who else could it be?
yeah, I know, it seems almost obvious, but, so I guess I'm just always looking at it and saying, the bottom
Yeah.
line is not that religion is wrong, it's that people are followers,
It is the
and they're
religion.
foolish,
Yeah,
it
and
is
they're,
the
But
religion.
But they're
religion,
making,
Yeah,
but religion
reinforces
is
all this.
wrong.
yeah. You could say that about,
Religion closes down what people can, the full potential that people can do, because it asks them to suspend their ambition, to suspend their thought, to suspend their follow through on ideas, because the ultimate truth is somebody transcendent that you can't see. And we lose, when you have a society like that, you'll have science of some kind, but you'll lose out ultimately in achieving more things, understanding nature better, understanding the universe better, understanding how things work better, because you'll be discouraged from going on because there's always God
Prohibition.
or a transcendent being is in charge of it, and they're not.
right, yeah, I agree with everything you just said.
Mhm.
Totally. Characterizing an idea, though, as an entity with a will and a force,
Mhm.
it's just an idea.
Well, yeah,
It doesn't have volition.
but it's
It
the
does-
people that.
But it is
grab
subject,
it.
in my opinion, to evolution.
Mhm.
Through the years, you must have
Well,
seen, you've
religion
done
has
so much
evolved,
study.
religion has
It
evolved.
evolves, and it is like a life form. It's
Mhm.
not a life form, but it's like one in
Yeah.
that it has a will to survive. All
Yeah.
the doctrines say, don't marry outside,
Yeah,
kill others that aren't part of us, reproduce within ours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's this whole
Mhm.
life force
Yeah, push
reflection.
your genes
like-
well, I
forward, yeah.
think if
And-
you looked at early Christianity, like if an early Christian came back right now, they would probably not recognize Christianity,
Oh.
how they don't.
Yeah.
And probably it's the
Especially-
same thing in Islam, and, you know, I can't speak to that, but I would suspect it's the same thing, or almost any religion. Probably people,
Mhm.
you know, in what we've evolved to now with religion is very different than the early days.
So the fittest survived. Because there's been so many religions, and just the ones that actually rung and resonated with humans somehow, these ideas.
Well, I find the Catholics have been like very clever, and they're trying it
Yeah.
again. You know, after all their bad press, they've got a pope that people kind of feel, you know, simpatico with. I find that very interesting. They always change a little bit. They, you know, we're not so bad. Oh, look at
Survival of the
us.
fittest.
We're okay.
He's cleverly revisited evolution again,
Mhm.
and how the Catholic Church supports evolution.
Mhm. But I mean, the church itself evolves every
Mhm.
Yes,
time.
it does.
When they're in trouble, when
Yeah,
things
yeah,
are
they'll
bad,
shift.
And
they shift. I mean, it's
Mhm.
brilliant. They've been doing that since the beginning.
religions
It's
get
almost
consumed.
diabolical.
There's predatory religions, and then there's the ones that get eaten by the predatory
Yeah,
religions.
yeah.
They get consumed and they grow, and it's the aggressors that seem to
Yeah.
have the largest, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
because how many belief systems disappear? Simple ones like just be nice to people and,
Forget it.
you know, meditate.
Yeah,
and,
who wants that?
and where the hell do they go?
Mhm.
You know?
Mhm.
And then the ones that say put a nickel in my bucket,
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
10%, they remain. And they also have the threat of pain and the
Yeah.
reward of, so they're using positive and negative conditioning.
Mhm.
They're all of the things that are just
Well,
natural
it's
selection,
the sense
playing.
too that you know you're going to be saved. You're somehow special,
Mhm.
and you know you're gonna, you know, because the Christians used to talk about that. The church fathers used to write on that about how hell was really cool. Not only did it punish the wicked, but it increased the happiness of those who were in heaven, that they could look down and see their torments
Suffering.
Yeah.
and suffering. I mean, that's
Nice
So
awful.
guys.
then, just like if you
Nice
thought of
guys.
it like a corporation, what would be the ideal? We all have danced with a corporation.
I
Their
never had
ideal
that.
goal
Never
is
have.
optimum money, right? The most money.
Sure.
Put out as little as you can,
Yeah.
take in as much as you can.
Yeah.
And the whole concept of religion is take in, and I will send you that check after you're dead.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like
right.
that one.
That's
That
a
is
good.
funny.
That's a good analogy.
It's the perfect optimum profit
Well,
system.
now actually, of course, it's not working very well, but well, actually, they do promise some riches and things, good health and things like that.
Whatever it takes to survive.
Right now, and
Just
on
get the
this
right
earth,
prayer going.
they're not even
Yeah.
doing the transcendent hardly anymore.
Orange
That's another evolution.
smiling Ornstein is the
My
preacher.
gosh, I've channel hopped in the morning, you know, when I'm trying to pick up the weather. Have you seen how full that stadium is?
I don't
What's
have
his
cable.
name?
It's actually a.
Austin.
Well, it's a covered stadium. It's what it looks like.
Joel Osteen. I mean, honest to
Joel
goodness.
Osteen.
Well, we're off topic.
Okay, sorry,
So I'd
no.
like to get back. Mary, you said that the commandment for female genital mutilation, also known as female circumcision, is not in the Hadith. That's not true. It is in the Hadith.
Boy, I haven't, the
And
way
I'll
I,
get you if you need it.
Okay. So you wanna send that to me?
Yeah, there are many different Hadiths, first of all,
Mhm.
and some of them are considered more reliable than others. They
Well,
tend to-
you know, I'm only talking about like the good ones, as it were.
Well, but, so even in the good ones,
Really?
it's in the good ones, yeah.
Okay, because,
But the apologists also still try to say, oh, well, that's the Hadith, that's not the Quran.
Mhm.
But in the Sunnah, and it's in the Sunnah, that's what Sunnah circumcision is the excision of the external genitals is soon a circumcision. So, I'll send you the references on that.
Okay, well,
You
if
know,
I'm
please correct
mistaken, I'm
that.
sorry.
Well, I just asked you to correct it in the lecture
Okay.
online, the
Okay.
actual website, because it could be misleading. Because I do meet Muslims that try to defend it and say, oh, that's not part of Islam, but it really depends on which school of law.
Funny, because my references, I mean, you know, I
You may have
depended
been-
on Ibn Waraq a lot.
Is
and
that what he
he's
said?
very anti-Islam.
Well, then he's not drawing on the right sources, because the Egyptian, for example, the Egyptians say it is part of Islam. And
Well, isn't this part of what's wrong, you know, like with how we understand Islam in the West, that, you know, one group said, one sect says this and the other sect says that? There's no central authority in that
And
religion.
there's different groups for Sunni, for example.
Right, there's a
It's like the
Sunni,
Baptist church.
There's about 4 Sunni at
And the
least, and then
Shia.
there's, yeah.
and it's the Sunni that are the most virulent about the circumcision. And there's 6 schools of jurisprudence that all make different fatwas.
See, this is the
decisions.
problem, yeah.
So yes, it does
It's
get
not like you've got the
confusing.
Pope, you know, or something.
So, but basically they would say it's a good deed, it's a good thing to do. They may not say it has to be done, but they will
See.
say it's a good thing.
Yeah, but see, there's a little difference between saying it's a good thing and saying that it's like enjoined by the Quran.
That's true, but you could say the same thing of male circumcision is also not in the Quran. So,
Right.
but yet it is universal.
But you know, here's the problem. You know, it's accepted by most, I think, Muslims that it's really, you know, it's not a religious. At least this is their apology for it. It's a custom. So I didn't want to start getting into that area because what they insist is a custom,
But
and
you're
they
just
don't
not-
feel
you're
it's
just-
part of their religion.
You're not talking to the right people then, because in
Okay,
Egypt,
well, okay.
it's a requirement, even though they made it against the law. It's very schizophrenic.
That's
It's-
what I mean.
It's
So
a
what do you?
requirement among the traditionalists.
But what are you gonna
It's
do? I
against the
mean,
law.
this
But this-
Muslim tells you. So I tried to like deal with generalities about what most.
But we shouldn't let them off the hook. You know, we shouldn't say, well, you know, I'm a segregationist, but I'm not for the Klan.
Okay.
You know, they're still treading on these waters of violating, in this case, little girls. So I think we have to make sure that they can't just say it's not part of Islam. That's not a fair answer. That's not an honest answer. It might be fair to say, well, in Turkey, the Muslims don't practice female genital mutilation.
Okay.
Now, that's true.
Well, I did say at the outset, remember that there were different customs and
There-
different.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very hard to pin down, but you see,
Very.
on top of that, there's a lot of propaganda
Yeah.
because they want to spoon feed to the West only what looks palatable.
Well, I think
To
I think that they're
Westerners.
embarrassed.
And then you have the liberal apologists that want to say, oh, no, it's not that bad, you're just being Islamophobic or whatever, you're just trying to exaggerate it to embarrass the Muslims.
Hmm.
But some things are actually probably worse than what we even understand it
Oh,
here.
I think so. Yeah.
Because we're at a distance. And then this veiling, was it clear though from your readings that you could, like a woman couldn't wear like a pink scarf or a multicolored scarf, or was it just that they had to be covered but they could wear any color scarf?
I think that they could probably wear any color.
Because that's what I'm starting to see is all of these promotions, you know, the women are wearing colorful scarves, and you say, you see, they can be beautiful and they can be veiled. As if, you know, they're meaning the letter of the law to be covered,
Yeah.
but they can still be attractive
Yeah.
to men.
I've seen a lot of very attractive girls
Yeah.
at Wayne when I was attending, and they were all covered. It was amazing, except for their face, you know, but it was amazing how seductive they were.
So it becomes
Some of
an absurdity.
Interesting.
It becomes this twisted custom where it's no longer really living up to the original intent.
No, because the point that you know Muhammad was trying to emphasize was that just modesty, basically.
And this isn't modest. What they're doing.
Yeah, it isn't. It isn't.
is
I've seen
subverting.
girls. They're so made up, and then they've got like, spike heels on, and they've got, their nails are done, they're extremely, and the looks that they give guys and stuff, and I was like amazed, I was sitting there scratching my head because I was saying, how seductive can you be if you want to be, it's quite amazing. With your head covered and everything, and the traditional garb on, I'm going like, that is quite a feat.
Now, I thought that at the root of all this was that male sex drive was this uncontrollable animal.
Well, that's a lot of it, yeah.
And that for that reason, women's garb was meant to cover up any sexual cue
Yeah.
that may set off that demon within.
But you know what?
Whether it's an ankle, what if you have a foot
See,
fetish?
that's the
I don't
trouble.
know, but-
I would imagine that any glimpse of anything
Yeah.
would drive the men
Would you just
crazy over
heighten
there.
the excitement?
My
if you
God,
saw even
I-
the smallest amount of skin.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God, the
even
wind
though-
blew her
even though the
veil
women
up.
are-
Oh my God, I saw her face. Yeah, I could just see that. Yeah.
But even though the women are under this tent, there's something about them. They're still women. They're still humans.
Yeah.
I had gone to short story shorter, I had brought my daughter to an engineering convention, so she said, "You owe me one." So she brought me to the women's convention.
Oh
And
wow.
I thought, well, I don't have any problem with that,
Oh
so-
boy.
But while we were there, they had the first thing you see when you walk in the door was the pole dancing, so, yeah, that's cool. But they had a Victoria's Secret, and in the Victoria's Secret, there was a gal in full burqa, the heaviest, with the little screen, holding up this little nightie, looking at it. And my daughter was like, get the K, it was too late by the time I got the camera, but
Because they can
it
wear for
says
their,
a lot, because
Mm-hmm.
underneath those burqas, them chicks are freaks. Big, hairy freaks.
that they can, at home with their husband, they could wear these things.
Yes.
They can wear makeup and perfume and all of everything, right?
Oh yeah, and
It's just
and
outside.
yeah, and they also, now, people that have money, from what I understand in those countries, they're covered up when they're on their way to parties and things, and when they get there, they take because they don't want
They
people
have
to
seven
see them in the
dresses
car,
and so
so,
forth.
and then they take off the black stuff and they've got designer things on.
But they would be around other people that are not their relatives.
Right, yeah.
I work with a Muslim gal who wears no veil, and she
No.
dresses nice, and she's attractive, and she talks to strange men like me and
Mm-hmm.
and my son, and very outgoing, extroverted, and yet she's devoted to the Muslim religion.
Yeah.
So to
It's
say
changing.
that there are all different levels,
Yes,
it's just
there
like
are.
the 30,000 Christian
There really are different levels.
divisions. All of them righter than the other one.
Mm-hmm.
But have you considered asking her about why she's not wearing a veil?
I have not.
Just kind of casually, because she would be frowned upon, right? In Iran or
Saudi Arabia.
she'd be in jail
Mm-hmm.
for that she's a heathen, she's an apostate.
She stepped away from the theocracy, still believes in Allah, but lives here.
Yeah.
And,
Okay.
and so she's not under a theocracy right now.
But I'm seeing more veils. Looking at people driving on the road, I see more women in veils than ever before. Even in
Really?
Oakland County, not just
I see them in
Dearborn.
shopping centers.
It's a little bit concerning.
It's like they're coming out,
Maybe they're coming
Mhm.
out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
'cause they can talk to you now, they can talk to strange, I went to the Arab American Museum with a video camera and interviewed them about life's lessons. I
Oh,
talked
that's
to you about that movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went in there, and the gal at the desk gave me her best lesson, and the guy behind her gave me his, and then he said, you shouldn't be filming in here, but either way, she's at the front desk greeting people. Yes, she had a veil, face uncovered, and very outgoing, very
Yeah.
friendly, at the Arab American Museum. Visit there sometime.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's
And then-
not surprising.
And then I went to a mosque and did the service, and
That's interesting.
yeah, my forehead got a little bruised. But anyhow, and my girlfriend, she had to wear a veil and go upstairs. FYI, I'll tell you the whole
Come
story
down on the
someday.
floor, yeah.
She really didn't hear much of it. Girls don't. But at the end of it, I interviewed the heck out of the people who invited us. And the gal who invited us used to be Baptist, and she turned Muslim.
Oh,
and
God.
and
They had to work.
I said, well, what do you do at the beach? And she said, well, we have something called a burkini. You ever hear of it? It's a burqa bikini.
Like how?
I think it probably still is solid and maybe covers our, I don't really know.
Because they had a controversy in Ann Arbor,
she
if
was
you
pulling
recall,
away.
that they weren't going to allow the girls to wear, you know, these kind of long, you know,
Bathing
cover,
suits.
yeah.
Yeah, what
and-
you're talking
And
about,
then
yeah.
they had a big controversy about religious freedom and respect and blah, blah, blah. So then I think that somebody designed some kind of a thing that wouldn't hinder their movement through the water or something. So they're allowed to wear them. The last I heard, I don't know if this is true or not. No.
She really opened my eyes to a lot of things. In her opinion, there was no 70 virgins. That was, and if you kill yourself at all, for any reason, you go to hell.
But
You
you
go
see-
right to hell.
Well, I think
Suicide,
Christians-
whether it's suicide
I think
bomber or not.
Christians
No,
believe
but
that.
see,
So,
you've
oh,
got
I
an
see.
apologist, you got an
Oh, no,
apologist,
that's
view.
upside down.
Is that right?
Suicide
You got-
bombers?
you got
They
propaganda.
go to hell.
It depends, you know, on what kind of Muslim you are. Yeah,
Oh, my
some people
goodness.
think
I
it's
heard her
terrible.
mom say the same thing.
But you see,
Yeah.
You will go directly to
Well,
hell.
see, you see, that's the thing. You can choose your imam.
yeah, you can choose your mom
Yeah.
because you're getting a sanitized version, just
Mhm.
understand that, they're trying to paint the best picture they can.
Well, you know,
Well,
Norm,
you're
they might
saying that
believe
there's
that,
different
this one
beliefs
group.
among them.
Oh, are there ever?
But they don't speak for Islam. Ask them, do you speak for Islam?
They'll say
They'll
yes.
have to say no. They'll have to, that would be sacrilege. I mean, I don't know how they could say that, but they would have to say, well, this is the best understanding we have. They would say something like that. This is the true word. But they said, well, why don't, Osama bin Laden says he had the true word. Why don't I believe him?
Well, see, again, this is the trouble when you don't have a central authority that's issuing doctrine, you know.
Yeah.
But the Quran's supposed to be that doctrine. So
Well,
if
it
you can
is,
find
but
in the
you know,
Quran
it's
where
like
it
the
says,
Bible. You start interpreting
I can
it,
find it
or
for
the
you.
Hindu scriptures.
Kill the unbeliever
No.
wherever you find him. And
but kill yourself. Suicide bomber. That's it's a sin to commit suicide.
But
Period.
most of them think it's okay.
he says, you know, carry out jihad,
Yeah.
which is spreading the word in those lands that are not yet converted.
And yet I thought it was most commonly used as that internal battle we have between
It's-
good and evil.
it's
That's
both.
what they
That's-
want
No,
you
no,
to
no,
do.
come on, now it's both.
He's baiting me. No,
No, it's both.
It's not internal.
Yeah, it
you'll find
is.
out
It's two,
that-
it's
that-
both.
that depending on what
You guys,
perspective they have, they'll be emphasizing the internal battle,
Yeah.
but they will also tell you, the next person will tell you that you have to go, it means literally to go into the next country and knock the hell out of them.
it's a double, it's a
It's a double.
double
What does the
thing.
book actually say then? Does it say both?
I don't think that the book says
3%.
that, does
Yeah,
it?
they've done the study that said 97% of the passages that are attributed to jihad. I'm not sure if that's just the Quran or also in the Hadith. 97% of them are the warlike jihad that we would think.
Okay,
is
well, I'm not
Physical
surprised.
battle.
Yeah, and only 3% are the internal
Okay,
internal
I'm not
jihad.
surprised.
because the
But
Quran
remember,
was
the
written-
more modern Muslims that don't, you know, they're more interested in the internal
Right.
jihad, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is
There
goes
are
into-
there are some, you know, modern type Muslims, just like,
now we're sort of doing a lecture on all of the problems with Islam and what's the truth about Islam, right? It's not just a made up threat.
I don't think that they understand how much, I think, you know, how much they would oppress us if they got the upper hand.
If
And,
they got
you know,
power.
and intellectuals never understand that till they end up on the chopping block, their
Well, the
heads
first ones
chopped
to
off.
go, yeah.
Yeah, almost the first, you
And then you
know.
release all the
Homosexuals.
prisoners and then.
Yeah, almost the first.
Yeah,
Yep.
And I don't, and again, they're making that, you know, really large error that, you know, it's all Islamophobia. And if you say anything, you know, you're ready to put the poor Muslims in concentration camps, and that's just not true.
Karen Armstrong.
I know, Karen
Boy,
Armstrong.
she put her foot in her mouth. It was
God,
just
well,
a-
see, but not to the liberal community, the extreme liberal community.
Yeah, I sent that to Glenn too.
So their problem then is that their point of evolution is where Christianity's was how many years
Yeah.
ago?
Yeah,
and where
exactly.
Judaism was
It's a
how many years
Yeah.
ago? So
Yeah,
all of them are just at a different state, and just
Yeah,
we happen to be
exactly.
a little farther. I say we meaning, you know, like
500 years.
Yeah, yeah.
so, you know,
But-
was
Yeah, there's something that happened that turned them into a backwater,
Yeah.
and they just don't seem to be able to emerge from that. And they're deteriorating on top of it.
They had a golden age
They
from
did,
800 AD to
yeah.
1200 AD. That was where they developed, they took all of the Greek ideas,
Aristotle
and
and all
Roman
those things,
ideas,
and they translated them.
Aristotle, and this, and they developed astronomy, they
Medicine,
developed mathematics, algebra, they developed, you know, Arabic numerals are actually 1, 2, 3,
don't
4,
forget though,
5.
you know, they ruled those areas, but some of those people were like Greeks and Romans
Yeah,
and stuff
that
were,
came,
yeah.
that they were, and
And they
the
helped
center
with
of the
their
whole
ideas.
thing was, of all places, Baghdad.
Yeah,
yeah.
And somebody came along later, along about 1150 or 1160, I forget what was his name, Al-Zahar,
Al-Ghazali,
Al-Ghazali, or whatever his name was,
Ghazali, yeah.
and very religious, and wanted to get everything back
Back.
to where it belonged, so he thought, and he told the country, well, the Islam world, that mathematics was actually evil and should not be done. And if you don't have mathematics,
I hate those
you
guys.
don't have science.
And it turned
and
them
the
in,
whole
helped
thing
turn
went-
them into.
Yeah. So the Golden Age was the most liberal time for Islam, and it was the most lax in its beliefs. And the modern
Christianity was
Muslims
like
don't
more
point that out.
rabid than they were. Their belief system was terrible
It
at
was
that
probably
time.
more, yeah.
Oh, it was awful,
So
yeah.
at that time, Islam who was the king who ruled it? Who came up with the concept of freedom of religion? And
That I don't know.
there's
I
some
don't know.
The Persians
There's
came
several
up
of
with-
them.
that's
some
another big one.
cylinder that they have in the
Yeah.
UN building that shows
That predates Islam.
the
I
first.
think, I would think,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Persia. The Persian king was the first one who said, we are gonna allow everybody to worship
Oh,
as they
okay,
choose.
yeah, it wasn't Islam, no,
Islam wouldn't have said that.
no.
Oh, that reminds me of a sequencing question I kind of had. You had talked
Islam
about
believes it's a duty to convert those, other people. They're like more rabid than Christians, some of the Christian sects. And, if you live in those countries and you're not a follower of, you're not part of Islam, you have to pay a tax generally, an extra tax.
so that tendency is just part of that evolution of will to survive and grow and reproduce that successful life forms have,
Yeah,
and Islam has it just like
in
Christianity
spades,
has
yeah.
it. And but not to go back to Hinduism here, if you don't mind, but I know in your write-up prior to the lecture you talked about something called Manu,
Yeah, the Manusmurti.
and
And
so-
Manu was the king, or they think he was the first king. That's all fantasy,
right.
He
Well,
was
so I
probably
read up
some
more
point.
on it because I work with a guy named Manu, so.
Oh,
So I read up more on it, and there were two meanings. One of them was Manu was the progenitor of man; he was Adam, essentially.
okay.
Another thing is that a Manu is an epic. It's a period of time, and that length of time is 300 million years and some change.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And we've been through enough of them that their belief adds up to the Earth being 2.1 billion years old.
I've heard this theory, yeah.
Okay.
And anyhow, I'm not sure how valid that is, but when I was reading, that's what I found. But and so let me zoom back to something you said, that heaven predated Hinduism.
The idea of like heaven, yeah, because the real Hindu religion, the pure one, it's like Buddhism. They really believe that you break that wheel of samsara,
yeah.
where that desire and wanting and et cetera, that illusion that you're living under, and you break that eventually by enough rebirths. And eventually you get to this point, and then they're they wobble like in the thing. Either you mingle with Buddha, or you have this sense of like, I don't know, you're somewhere where there's like some kind of, you're not really an
Nirvana?
entity anymore, but like your radiance. They never, it's very unclear exactly, but it's considered a very, very good thing.
But it has something to do with balance of karma, and you end up achieving nirvana.
Yeah, well,
I
you
didn't know
don't,
Buddha
there,
was
you
part of that.
eliminate karma at the time that you receive that,
Yeah.
that
And
transcendence.
it's not that you've just been all good,
Karma's
but
gone.
it balanced out,
Yeah,
and somehow,
well, it isn't
But-
even,
but the point-
even balanced out, I mean, it's just, it's gone.
okay.
It's gone. Karma is something that like belongs to, this world,
So by heaven, we mean nirvana.
No, actually, no. They had a different version they don't really believe in heaven like Islam believes in heaven or
Right.
Christians believe in heaven. No.
So heaven wasn't the right word, I guess. They have their own
right,
version.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's this sense of like
That's where I
just
got confused,
think of
because I was
like
like,
blending in with the great, I don't know, Buddha or whoever,
Yeah.
or something in the sky. Yeah, think of
going
blending in
back to God.
and not
or
being
whatever.
like corporal as the Islam thinks or Christianity thinks. It's just some kind of state of radiance.
Being dead and gone.
But yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's
Yeah.
not nirvana.
Yeah, no, that's atheist.
That's just reality. I
Yeah.
don't want to mix up the conversation with any of that.
Actually, it's it depends who you're talking to, what this means.
Can you mention any reformers, any women or men that were trying to reform the oppression of women in these countries?
No,
either
I'm sorry, I
Hindu or
can't.
Islam?
I can't, but I mean, that if you read the books on them, like, Ibn Barak, or there was, I can't remember the man's name, he has a website up where he's trying to do something. Yeah, so there are people, I'm sorry, his name escapes me.
Okay.
I have it down as a reference somewhere, yeah.
Because, I mean, that has to be an important part of the story. If it's ever going to change, there has to be advocates and
Well, there are a lot of reformers now,
activists.
Yeah, they may not be real. I think that movie you loaned me was made by someone who was.
Yeah,
Must
yeah.
have been some kind of.
Yeah,
reform.
it's dangerous
To get the
though,
word, yeah.
Oh, is it
but
ever?
but there are people, yeah.
Who was the
Because
young lady who got shot
a
in the
radical
face
gets a
or
hold
Malala.
of that, and
Malala, yeah, yeah.
a radical gets a hold of that idea, and they'll say, well, this is against everything that we believe in. That man is evil.
Yeah.
These guys are scary. I mean, I'm frightened of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems that the rights of women are really the canary in the coal mine when you talk about the dangers or the pathology of a culture. You can measure the status of women using that to measure
That's
the
a good
pathology
point,
of
Norm.
a culture. Say Saudi Arabia comes to mind, Iran comes to mind,
And the rights of children.
and the rights of children. But in Islam, I think children are pretty much ignored.
Yeah,
They don't really matter
No.
until they're older.
yeah. Well, except they
Until
circumcise
they're 9,
them.
you can marry them.
Yeah, except they circumcise them.
Well, yeah, yes, of course, yeah, they circumcise them, the Muslims see circumcision differently than the Jews do. It's not a sign of a covenant, it's just it's a cleansing process, but it's not as high in status as the Jewish circumcision.
Did you say in that in Islam you can marry
When you're
9-year-olds?
Yeah, now that is in the
Yeah,
Quran.
yeah.
Yeah, Aisha was
Yeah.
9.
Yeah,
And is
Muhammad's
Muhammad's
wife.
favorite wife, one of many, but his favorite, Aisha. And she actually went on in Hadith, she's quoted many times, as like also kind of a leader among the women. So that it gets pointed out a lot by critics of Islam, and the apologists say, oh, well, but everybody was doing that at the time because you didn't live that long anyway. A lot of girls were getting married at 9.
but there's even some talk in some of their things, in some of their literature about, even younger than that.
Well, you can, the girls can
And
actually
then
get married.
I mean, because sometimes, they wait till the girl is really of age to, they
have
marry them,
sex
but
with
they
them.
don't have sex.
Yeah.
But there's things that seem to say that in the literature that they were having sex with them sometimes. Wouldn't they, like, split
Before
the
age
little girl or
9?
hurt her?
Oh my God.
That They would, no, I think the jurors would say, do not have sex with a girl until she's 9. But you can
But 9
marry
is
them at
like-
5. You can marry
Yeah.
at 5, but you cannot have sex
But
with
9
them.
is
You gotta wait
bad.
till
I
she's
mean, how could you
nominated
have
and
sex
married.
with a 9-year-old child?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty disgusting, and that's pointed out.
You would hurt the child, I
And
would
Muhammad
think.
was a pervert, and so they say, how dare you call
Well,
him a pervert, I'm
that's,
gonna
see,
kill
that's,
you.
that's sacrilege,
Yeah,
blasphemy.
that would get yourself killed in some countries,
Mhm.
even if it's the truth. No, they said 9, it didn't matter whether she was menstruating or not.
Is that also true in the Bible? How young could you marry in the Bible?
No,
Or they
How
just
were
never
they?
mention it?
It's just, again, they just didn't seem to care that much about girls or boys, you know,
Yeah.
except, you know, the circumcision and honor your parents. But,
Well, all 3 of those religions were started out.
I mean,
with
these
gonna
early
stab a young
marriages
boy
aren't
and-
that unusual, but they
Instead,
would usually
instead
wait
of
till the
having burn.
girl was menstruating, 12 or 13. You know, usually.
yeah, that would be up to the local, you know, culture to
Yeah.
decide.
Yeah.
But in Yemen, it's still a problem. Child marriage is still a problem in Yemen. And now with the rise of ISIS, the Islamic State,
Oh,
it's going
God.
to be a problem because they take that age seriously.
Mhm.
And these girls are getting married, and in Iran, I should say too, they are getting married at 9
Isn't that awful?
because they say Muhammad was a perfect example of a man. And so if he did it, then I can do it.
Well,
Who
yeah.
cares what the West
Yeah.
thinks?
That makes sense, I mean,
Then you also have the temporary marriage. You didn't mention temporary marriage. You know what temporary marriage is? Is that a man can get married for the night. If he wants to have sex with a prostitute, he can go
well, I
Take
talked
her-
about serial marriages.
take her to an imam and have a ceremony that's basically, you know, a facade. And then the next day say, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you.
What is the point of it?
Because it's legal sex. It's sex
Oh,
within
I
marriage.
see, it's not
And you probably
fornication.
have to pay the imam too.
You probably have to pay the imam.
No, I'm
It's
sure.
a scam, but it's sanctioned by the legal system.
Oh, so, okay, so somebody might be afraid of getting
So
caught.
someone can accuse you of being adulterous.
Because
Yeah,
otherwise
a
you'd be put to
fornicator.
death.
Fornicator.
They'd have to have an out. But this obviously is very detrimental to women for lots of reasons. So that's another oppression. It's too bad.
Well, I mentioned the serial marriages, you know, where now
There's
they
the
don't want the
serial
responsibility even.
Right.
Before they used to take that on, they'd have several wives and kids and they would be supporting all of them.
Mhm.
Now they can't afford it, so they just divorce after a little bit.
Yes. And they say, oh, we can
But
only
listen, but
marry
that is not really considered really respectable,
to have many marriages.
like that, yeah. Yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
in respectable circles, you know, the family and the friends, they all, you know, intervene. So it's really not considered a good thing to do, you know.